It's been 25 years since Katie Price and Dane Bowers split up. And finally, we're hearing his side of the story. After decades of silence, the man Katie once called the love of her life has broken his silence and admitted he was to blame for breaking her heart. But that's not all. What he revealed this week has reopened one of the most emotional chapters in Katie's turbulent romantic history. A relationship that shaped who she became and nearly destroyed her. Before we unpack everything Dane said, make sure you're subscribed, because the next few weeks are going to be packed with shocking revelations from both Katie and her exes. Now let's get into it. On a brand new episode of the Shizio Show podcast, Dane Bowers sat down and, for the first time, told the truth about why he walked away from Katie Price back in the late 90s. When she was still known as Jordan, the biggest glamour model in Britain. The pair started dating in 1998, and to fans, they were electric. Katie was at the peak of her fame, Dane was topping the charts with Another Level, and together they were the ultimate 90s celebrity couple, beautiful, brash, and unstoppable. But behind the glitz, it was messy. Dane revealed that their relationship ended because of his own insecurity and immaturity. In his words, "I was a bit of a deek." He said he couldn't handle what she did for a living, that her glamour modeling made him uncomfortable, even though it was her career long before he came along. He admitted that as their relationship grew more serious, he wanted her to stop doing shoots. She agreed for a while. But then, she was asked to do another calendar. One of those glossy shoots that built her empire. And when she said yes, Dane issued an ultimatum. "If you do that, we can't be together." She called his bluff. She did the shoot anyway, and he ended it. Listening to him tell it now, all these years later, it's hard not to notice the regret. He said flat out, "It was wrong. That was her job. And I knew that was her job. But at the time, it wasn't about logic. It was about ego." He was young, insecure, jealous, and maybe intimidated by how powerful her brand had become. And in the heat of that toxic mix, he blew it up. To understand why this matters so much to Katie, you have to remember where she was in 2000. She wasn't yet the household name she'd become. She was a young woman fighting to turn modeling fame into something bigger. A television career, music, brand deals. And Dane was her anchor. In interviews years later, she said he was the only man she ever truly loved. When he left, it shattered her. Katie herself has been brutally open about how badly that breakup affected her. She once admitted on Loose Women her belief that Dane was obsessed with Victoria Beckham. It sounds wild now, but remember, this was the year 2000. Dane had just collaborated with Victoria on the single Out of Your Mind, right when she was newly married to David Beckham and stepping into her solo pop era. The song was a hit, and the gossip was instant. She convinced herself that something was going on between them. "I thought he was obsessed with her," she said. "It ended up being her friend, so my paranoia was right." Dane, for his part, never publicly addressed that claim until now. And in this new interview, he doesn't confirm or deny the Victoria angle, but he makes it clear the problem was his own insecurity. He simply couldn't cope with a woman whose career demanded confidence, exposure, and independence. In other words, he wanted Jordan, but he couldn't handle her. And that's what makes this confession sting even more. Because for Katie, it wasn't just a breakup. It was a wound that never fully healed. Over the next 2 decades, she would go on to marry 3 times, have 5 children, and live every chapter of her love life in public. But fans who followed her since the beginning know that when she talks about her real heartbreak, she always circles back to Dane. Their story is a time capsule of late 90s celebrity culture. The tabloids, the jealousy, the blurred line between love and fame. But what's striking now is how much self-awareness Dane seems to have gained. On the podcast, he came across as calm, reflective, even embarrassed by how controlling he once was. He said, "She stopped doing shoots for a while. Then when she wanted to again, I tried to control it. That was wrong. That was her job. In hindsight, it's obvious. He was threatened by her power. She was Britain's most photographed woman. He was a pop star in a boy band that was starting to fade. And when she refused to shrink herself to keep him comfortable, the relationship imploded. For Katie, that moment marked the start of a new version of her public image. Defiant, unapologetic, and forever associated with heartbreak. She channeled that pain into career reinvention, television shows, books, fashion lines, music attempts, and the kind of relentless self-promotion that would define her brand for decades. But behind the glamour, she carried that emotional scar. Even in later relationships, you can see the echoes, the need to be adored but not controlled, the urge to prove herself, and the anger at being underestimated. And it's not lost on fans that even now, 25 years later, her love life still plays out under the same kind of scrutiny. She's currently dating Married at First Sight star J.J. Slater, calling him "my absolute everything," while her public image remains as polarizing as ever. But this revelation from Dane adds a new layer to the legend of Katie Price. Because for years, she was painted as the one who ruined relationships, the wild one, the drama queen. Now her most famous ex is admitting that in this case, it wasn't her fault. It's also fascinating that he brought this up right now, just as Victoria Beckham's new Netflix documentary is dominating headlines. It's almost poetic. The same woman Katie once felt threatened by is back in the spotlight, telling her own story. And Dane, the man who connected them both in that strange triangle of fame, is suddenly revisiting the past. He even mentioned feeling sympathy for Victoria and David over their family feud, saying he understood how fame magnifies everything. Maybe this is his way of closing the loop, admitting his part in Katie's heartbreak and making peace with that old chapter. But if you think this means Katie's going to let it slide quietly, think again. Insiders say she's already been venting to friends about how convenient it is for Dane to confess this now, just as she's rebuilding her reputation with new projects, music, and the ongoing tour with Kerry Katona. It's classic Katie. She knows how to spin a headline, and she's already hinting at telling her side again soon. So if you thought the Dane Bowers story was finished, it isn't. Let's not forget what their relationship represented back then. Two tabloid icons at the height of their fame, both young, reckless, and drowning in attention. They were photographed everywhere, from clubs to red carpets, in matching outfits, flashing their new cars and perfect smiles. But behind the scenes, they were kids in a pressure cooker, with no one teaching them how to handle fame, money, or love. It was inevitable that it would explode. What's surprising is that all these years later, both of them are still in the headlines and still talking about each other. That says something about how formative that relationship was. It wasn't just another fling, it was the one that defined her, the one she never quite moved past. For now, though, one thing's clear. After 25 years, the truth is out. Dane Bowers admits he broke her heart out of insecurity and pride. And Katie Price, the woman who's lived through scandal after scandal, finally gets to stand on the right side of that story. Make sure you hit subscribe right now, because we'll be covering every fallout, every response, and every new twist as it breaks.